Recently, I rewatched Midsommar, the folk horror movie, and I wanted to interpret it from a psychological and symbolic point of view. So let's do it. If you haven't seen Midsommar or it's been a while since you've seen it, let me just briefly give you the plot. And disclaimer here, I did watch the extended director's cut, which contains a lot more character and thematic development. So the movie begins in the winter. College student Dani receives a concerning email from her bipolar sister, so she calls her boyfriend Christian for support, and afterwards she's kind of spiraling because she needed to lean on him. Meanwhile, his friends are telling him to dump her. They're calling it literally abuse that she needs to lean on him for support during a family crisis. He wants to sleep with other women and he wants to dump her, but when he picks up her call, she's sobbing uncontrollably, and we learn that Dani's sister did a double murder, and Dani's entire family, her sister and her parents, are now gone. Dani finds out through Christian's friends at a party that he's going to Sweden in 2 weeks, and they end up having a fight over it, which ends with him inviting her to come after all and acting like he was trying to keep it a secret because he was gonna invite her and make it a really romantic gesture. Once they arrive in Sweden, they take shrooms at this commune. Dani is very clearly traumatized. Anyone even mentioning family triggers her into fight or flight and into basically a panic attack. The commune in Sweden feels very cultish. Everyone's wearing all white, there are flutes playing. We hear someone in the background saying, "These are my family." And the next day, Christian forgets that it's Dani's birthday, partly because of the midnight sun. It's kind of hard to figure out what was yesterday and what was today. And all of the guests at this commune basically watch two 72-year-olds jump off a cliff, which they learn is a tradition in this cult. When you turn 72 that year at the Midsummer Festival, you jump from this cliff and basically put yourself out of the misery of continuing to live. But the guy who throws himself off the cliff doesn't die right away, so the villagers hit him in the face with a giant hammer, and we see kind of this concept of a mercy kill. Meanwhile, Christian's getting the hots for a 15-year-old in the commune named Maya. It seems like she's trying to do witchcraft on him to fall for her because she puts a love rune under his bed. He finds a red pube in his food, and she's a redhead. And later, the outsiders learn that the commune members invite outsiders into these rites in order to diversify their bloodline and prevent inbreeding. One of the friends on this group, Mark, accidentally pees on the ancestral tree of the villagers. Another friend, Josh, gets killed while trying to take photos of their scripture book. And then they have the maypole dance, where all the women are dancing around the maypole, and Dani wins as the May Queen because she is the one who dances for the longest. They take her to bless the crops and livestock, as is their tradition, and when she comes back, she sees Christian ritualistically mating with Maya. As she starts sobbing and screaming, all the other women also start sobbing and screaming with her as well. After the ritual is over, Christian goes looking for somewhere to run. He finds some of the outsiders' bodies, and a local comes and blows dust into his eyes, and he collapses. And the responsibility falls on the May Queen, meaning Dani, to decide who is going to be the last sacrifice this midsummer. Is it going to be Christian, or is it going to be a randomly picked member of the cult? She picks Christian, which is kind of an easy pick when you walk in on your boyfriend having ritualistic sex with a 15-year-old. So they dress Christian inside the skin of a bear, and then they put all of the human sacrifices in a barn and set the barn on fire. And in the very last scene, everyone is screaming and being weird, and we see Dani sort of breaking out into a smile. I really loved the interpersonal dynamics in this movie because it really spoke to the experience of being in a relationship with a piece of shit. I think that Christian was borderline emotionally abusive to Dani. You know, he tried to make her feel bad for giving him a bouquet of flowers because for some reason he felt guilty about it. You know, from the outside looking in, it's pretty clear that he felt guilty about it because that was his own conscience telling him he doesn't care about Dani, and clearly she does care about him. The fact that he was trying to frame her as like some sort of abuser for needing to lean on him for support during a personal crisis was to me a pretty clear-cut example of Darvo, of somebody pretending to be a victim when actually they are the one who's closer to the abuser. Christian seems super avoidantly attached in terms of his attachment style, and Dani seems pretty anxiously attached. So when she tries to express her feelings, he tries to leave, and then she ends up being the one having to apologize for just bringing up how she was feeling in the first place. I couldn't believe it when I found out that they'd been together for 4 years. Because given their lack of intimacy, I thought they'd only been together for like a few months in college. Towards the second half of the movie, Danny starts to recognize that they're in the devaluation phase and that she's about to be discarded by Christian. And it's not just Danny that Christian is a piece of shit with either. I thought it was interesting that he was into Maya specifically, not only because like she's literally a teen, which like disgusting, but also because she's a ginger just like him. And that's not to say that like anyone who is attracted to people who have the same hair color as them is a narcissist, but I do think in this particular case, it spoke to a little bit of narcissism. That like, of course, out of all the women in this cult, the one he was attracted to was one who was not even appropriate for him to be attracted to, but who was the most similar to him. Christian also consistently shows a lack of empathy for other people, like with how he steals his friends/classmates' thesis topic, or when Danny's telling Christian that Connie's boyfriend left without her, Christian pretends to care for just like the briefest moment, and then he goes right back into trying to get information about the commune from one of the villagers. And we see Danny kind of looking at him, and I think that's the moment when she truly sees him for who he is, for the fact that he does not care about other people. But I think the main theme of this movie is the search for family and belonging. So as we know, Danny's entire family is gone at the beginning of this movie. And we later learned that the Swedish guy, Pelle, I think is his name, who brought them into the commune, was brought into the cult family after being orphaned when his parents died in a fire. And he sees Christian for what a terrible boyfriend he is to Danny. And at one point he even asks Danny, does he feel like home to you? Which really speaks to how your partner, your friends, like anyone in your community is supposed to feel like home to you. If you don't feel like you can lean on them, like they can grieve with you when you are going through a personal crisis, they are not your people, they are not your family, and everyone needs a family. So in situations like that, it's really important to turn your attention to someone who can be that community for you. Contrast that with how happy and carefree and alive Danny seems when she's dancing around the maypole with the other women. We see how badly she wants a family, a community to call her own, and she will never find that in her boyfriend and his friends, because those people do not care about her. And it was actually quite beautiful how after Danny catches Christian cheating on her with Maya, all of the women started sobbing and screaming along with her. It almost looked to me like kind of working somatically through all the grief, and also the fact that she didn't have to do it all on her own anymore, I think was really powerful. There was somebody there experiencing it with her. But there's also a darker side of family that we see in this movie, and that is the idea of sacrificing family for their own good, which is what Danny's sister probably thought she was doing when she did the double suicide, and which is what the cult thought they were doing by making people jump off a cliff at 72 years old. And there's also a scene where they're about to sacrifice a girl adorned in evergreens into the lake to the goddess. And the girl says, "What's brave in going home?" So in certain toxic families or cults or communities like this, people are brainwashed into thinking that they are just going home, or that they are just playing their role in the system when they are choosing to sacrifice themselves. It speaks to the evils done in the name of protecting one's family. Now, Christian and his friends are studying anthropology. And I don't talk about this much, but I actually minored in cultural anthropology in college. And I thought the movie also did a really good job of showing how anthropologists are super into cultural relativism, into this idea that there's no like one correct culture, that everyone just does things differently, and we need to be open-minded to that. For the most part, I completely agree with. I think we need to not be ethnocentric and think that the way our culture does things is the only correct way. But I remember even in college when I was in all of these anthropology courses thinking that sometimes anthropologists take it just a little bit too far. There would be anthropologists justifying, for instance, the idea that Italian shepherds kill each other over disputes, or the idea that there's something impure about women when they're menstruating and therefore they shouldn't be allowed in mosques. Or even cannibalism was sometimes justified. And it's like, we can't judge too much, it's a different culture. It's like, no, I think in certain situations, when there's like an act of violence taking place, for instance, I think maybe we can judge a culture, That was part of the reason why I didn't decide to major in anthropology. I was just like, I get you're trying to be open-minded, but this is a bit much, don't you think? So I thought it was very clever that the movie depicted that sort of cultural relativism outlook in the anthropology students, because it was spot on, in my opinion. What is the symbolism of the midnight sun? In my opinion, I think the midnight sun represents the other side of grief. So in the initial scene, like I said, it's very wintry. We see this cold, icy, still, desolate scene. And after Dani finds out about her family tragedy, it's very snowy outside. And then the movie skips forward to summer when they're about to go to Sweden. And because of the midnight sun, we get the quote, "It's tomorrow from today's perspective." This kind of like blending together between yesterday and today, between today and tomorrow. The midnight sun blurs the lines between distinct categories. And I think it also blurs the lines between grief and celebration. For example, at the very end, when Dani breaks out into a smile while her boyfriend is burning down in a barn, there can be joy in grief as well. And I think the whole aesthetic of the movie, with like white clothing, with flowers, with sun, it evokes this idyllic life that can feel a little bit cultish. And part of it is normal midsummer Swedish pagan traditions, but part of it is also the fact that this is a depiction of a cult specifically. You know, like some of the normal pagan traditions, you know, having a feast, selecting the number 9 for the number of days of the feast, the runes, ritualistically picking flowers, dancing around the maypole, all of these are normal pagan traditions for midsummer. But then there are things that are not normal in pagan cultures, like making 72-year-olds sacrifice themselves, or having human sacrifices, or, you know, bringing in outsiders to diversify the bloodline. These are things that are more typical of a cult. So I think in this movie we see an exaggeration of the pagan rituals meant to increase a sense of kinship. It combines normal kinship that you see in pagan cultures with coercion that you see in cults. The maypole is also an interesting symbol. So when you're dancing around the maypole, usually you have like ribbons attached between yourself and the maypole. And because, you know, all the women are going in different directions and all of that, you end up adorning the maypole with a bunch of different ribbons of different colors. And they're all extremely interconnected. Like if you were to unbraid them somehow, it would be incredibly difficult. So I think the maypole partly speaks to this interconnectedness of kinship, of community. It also represents the unity between the masculine and the feminine. And for that reason, it can be a phallic symbol. It can be, you know, a symbol of fertility, and particularly of the cycle of life and death, right? Like this is a movie about death and about grief, but it's also a movie about life and about joy and community. And in pagan traditions, the two are pretty inextricable from each other. But in modern times, in more, you know, Abrahamic religions, they're kind of divorced from each other. And the maypole is also an opportunity for ecstatic dance and madness, which was also a component of like enlightenment during pagan rituals. So in conclusion, this is a movie about a university student dating an asshole who learns to grieve the traumatic loss of her family from the midsummer rites of a Swedish cult. And she learns about the importance of finding a sense of found family and the fact that she does not have that with her current social circle. She also learns that joy and grief are inextricable, as are life and death. And it's just like the concept of a midnight sun, where you cannot tell where yesterday ends and tomorrow begins. What did you think of the movie, and what did you think of my interpretation of the movie? Because like I always say, art is subjective, so I love hearing different people's lenses that they bring to these interpretations. Hope you have a nice rest of your week, and I'll see you soon. I'm so excited to announce that my second novel, A Song at Dead Man's Cove, is now available for pre-order. If you love lush, atmospheric, haunting gothic horror, then this is the book for you. It's set in coastal Washington in 2 timelines, and it follows 2 protagonists, one in the modern times who fears intimacy, and one in the Victorian era who thinks stealing love will make her whole. So if this sounds up your alley, follow the link in my bio or in the pinned comment below so that you can pre-order your copy. Pre-orders are only available for ebooks at this time. The paperbacks and hardcovers will also become available once the book is released on June 2nd, 2025. Check it out and stay spooky.
Tell me what you need, tell me what you need, tell me.